Good afternoon and welcome to the continuation on the series Farmers Markets during COVID-19. This is a joint venture between the Illinois Farmers Market Association and University of Illinois Extension. My name is Lori George and I am one of the U of I local food systems and small farms educators with my office located in the Mount Vernon area. I'm happy to present Jane Maxwell, Executive Director of the Illinois Farmers Market Association, who will be speaking to us today on re-envisioning our farmers markets during COVID-19. As Illinois moves into phase 4, changes will be occurring not only at the state level, but at the regional and local levels as well, and that will include our Illinois farmers markets. Jane will be discussing these changes today and will explain how it will affect your local market. Jane is a registered dietitian and works to promote the health and economic impact of local food and farmers markets. It is through the Illinois Farmers Market Association that market guidelines have been developed and accepted by many market managers, vendors, and organizations throughout Illinois. Welcome back, Jane.
Thank you, Lori, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. It's really fun to see so many familiar names on the list of attendees today. We really appreciate your time and hope today will be valuable to you. And again, thank you very much to the University of Illinois Extension for their partnership that allows us to bring these webinars to you. And a special shout out today to Lori George. We had so many technical issues this morning that she basically jumped through large hoops to make sure that today is going as scheduled. So thank you very much, Lori. So we'll get started and talk about phase 4. What does that mean? So who is the Illinois Farmers Market Association? As I said, I see many familiar names, so I'm sure many of you are familiar, but just so you know that the Illinois Farmers Market Association is a 501c3 that works to promote farmers markets, local food, and all of the aspects that go along with farmers markets. We see ourselves as advocates working to break down barriers to farmers markets operating. For example, in this season, we've spent a significant amount of time making sure that farmers markets, first of all, were essential. And then as individual markets face barriers, trying to address those either on a systems level or on an individual level to make sure that those markets had the opportunity to move ahead and to move forward. So we do advocacy, we do a lot of promotion, we try and promote farmers markets, the benefits of farmers markets, and if you haven't been following us on social media, I really recommend that you do that. Recently, there was a 10 Reasons to Shop Your Local Farmers Market campaign. Those are easily shareable through your farmers market or organization to try and promote farmers markets. And as we move forward, you'll see some new campaigns that are coming and just even week-to-week posts that we try and upload to make sure that we are promoting farmers markets. And then probably most importantly, the reason you're all here today is best practices. We want to talk about what are the best practices for farmers markets and try and address those, put them into usable terms so that across the board, across the state, these are things that we can work toward. So again, just a little bit of history. In March, we did find that farmers markets were declared to be an essential service. But again, what we really found was that farmers markets really needed some help getting started. So declaring them essential was step one, but then getting over the jurisdictional hurdles to moving a farmers market forward was then the next step that many markets had to go through. Many farmers market managers this season have probably, they're used to managing a farmers market. And for many of the people maybe on this call or just not on this call, this may be actually the 4th type of farmers market that you've managed so far this season. So a huge shout out to farmers market managers for being flexible, adapting, and working really hard to make sure that your farmers markets opened and that you were able to provide food access to your community. Likewise, huge shout out to the organizations that have supported farmers markets, and then also to the vendors who have had to be extremely flexible as well, many having to recreate their business models to make sure that they have an opportunity to sell their products. So thank you to everyone. So why farmers markets? Well, in this season, probably the two things that are highlighted are really, really key. Access to fresh, nutritious food. That's what really matters. That's why farmers markets are essential. We also know that it is a short supply chain, fewer hands touch food that typically comes through a farmer's market. And then the open air environment also provides that sense of safety. And as we are beginning to understand a little bit more about this virus transmission, that seems to be a healthier environment than the confines of inside. But then all of these other reasons, all the other reasons that we've been working hard on farmers markets over the last number of years. For example, it's an opportunity to use your link card and to have the link double value or the link match program administered and provide those benefits to customers. Just so you're all aware, the WIC and Senior Farmers Market Coupon Program is moving forward. If your county is one of those counties that is supported in that program, I believe redemption and those coupons should be showing up at markets mid-July. And so that's about to kick off. And that will be another opportunity for some of your at-risk community members to access farmers market products with these incentive programs. We know it supports the local economy. We want to very much support our local growers and producers. And we know that a lot of money goes through farmers markets. And the thing about that money is the direct-to-consumer outlet for our producers is the outlet where they take more money back to the farm or back to their business. I think USDA tells us that that number is greater than 90 cents out of every dollar. And unfortunately, in the conventional food system, it's about 17 cents out of every dollar goes back to the farmer. So again, it's a tremendous opportunity, and we're trying to work to make sure that these things move forward. We've also seen growing consumer demand. In this season, there have been some issues with the conventional food system and the food supply chain, and we are seeing an increased demand for locally produced food. So we have had a lot of barriers, though. It has not just been an easy season moving forward, but instead, local jurisdictions have used their permitting powers to delay or to close markets. Many markets have moved to a pre-ordering system to secure sales, but we have had the issue that that doesn't service our link customers. You may have heard that here in Illinois that SNAP or link sales are approved for online, and they are, but right now, to my knowledge, the only two retailers that can do that are Walmart and Amazon. That is not an opportunity that is open to farmers markets yet. That's something else that Farmers Market Association is working on. Not alone, in partnership with many other organizations who want to see that happen as quickly as possible. And then, of course, markets have been much more labor intensive, and that has really been a huge issue, not only for farmers getting ready for market, selling at market, but then also for our farmers market managers, and especially taking a toll on many of our markets that are smaller and volunteer run. So the other piece is, again, the emphasis on food access versus special events. I absolutely love the way that farmers markets bring a community together for a whole lot of community activities, as well as the opportunity to purchase food. But in this season, the emphasis has really been on food access versus special events, especially because other organizations are looking at farmers markets and saying, why do you get to move forward if our special event doesn't? And that's because of the food access point. So vision, we wanted to set a vision for what is possible, making sure that farmers markets were seen as an opportunity to buy food and not just as this great big gathering space of hundreds or thousands of people in a small space that would not be advisable during COVID-19. We hear a lot about public safety, and it's certainly something that's very high on the radar of what our goals are, but also vendor safety. That's a real issue, making sure that our vendors are safe when they sell at markets. Trying to ensure that there are sales and there is profit, but then also distributing food. And the two main ways since March that we've been talking about, how do you put together a farmer's market, and with the emphasis on food distribution, the main method is social distancing and enhanced sanitation. So the other thing, though, it is interesting, some of the things that have been in the news. This is from an epidemiologist that is from Drexel University. It's just outside of Philadelphia. And she says there's benefits to visiting a farmer's market in light of the coronavirus in terms of the fact that you're outside where the air is moving and the supply chain is shorter. And so there has been this perception and this discussion about how farmers markets may actually be some of the safest places to shop right now. This is just an example of one of the many iterations of guidelines that are placed in markets to try and guide customer behavior while they visit the market. This is a piece that I don't think we talk a lot about, but especially in this season where we're talking about the food that comes from a farmer's market has a shorter supply chain. We know that when, for example, food comes from a family farm directly to the market, directly to my table or yours, that's a very small supply chain. Very few hands touch it in that process, whereas the conventional food system does have many more hands, whether it's at the farm level or just in the transportation or just even the shopping system that is set up in the typical grocery store. But here in Illinois, there is actually a law in the books about farmers markets that requires vendors at farmers markets that are selling agricultural products to label where they are from at the point of sale. And so most farmers who bring only their own produce or crops to a farmer's market do that by putting up a sign that has the name and the location of their farm, and that meets this requirement. But there are some markets out there. We know that there are as many different types of markets as there are different types of communities, and there are many different rules about what can be sold at a farmer's market. Some farmers markets have very few regulations and rules, and there are some actually that market managers go out and visit the farms of the people that supply at the market just to make sure that they are really, in fact, producing those particular crops. So there's this wide spectrum. And so kind of to deal with that, this origination law was put into place that says you just have to let your customer know where the product is from. If in fact it was not grown on your farm, maybe it was just grown on your neighbor's farm and you're bringing it to market for them, or maybe in fact it is a resold product, it needs to be labeled with where it is from. And if it's not known exactly where that product is from, then it has to be labeled with where the product was purchased from. So that information is really key, especially as we're telling farmers market customers that there's a very short supply chain. We want to make sure that we are adequately displaying the supply chain for them so that they can make their own informed choice on what it is that they want to purchase based what they know about the products that are being sold at the market. This is also a season for metrics. I know we all talk about metrics, and it always just seems like something that, I just wish we had some numbers that really explained how farmers markets are working. Are they profitable? How many customers come through? What are the vendor sales? But many of our markets now have instituted an in and out so that there is a point of entrance and a point of exit. Some people are reporting that their customers have to wait in a short line to enter the market. And when they do have to wait, it's a great opportunity to ask some questions, and maybe this can just be done with Post-it notes or the host at the door using a marker to mark off answers. But it's really great to be able to count the number of customers that come, ask vendors for sales numbers, find out, is your customer base new to the market, and if at all possible, find out why, or are they a returning 2019 customer? because there are lots of things that are going into this season. And as I talk to farmers market managers and farmers across the state, I hear so many stories. People that are saying this is the best season I've ever had. People are saying I am losing so much money. So it would really be helpful if we had some metrics to put with that so that we have an opportunity to make an informed evaluation at the end of this 2020 season. So please think about super simple ways that you could collect some metrics on your farmers market and on your farmers market sales. As we said, the Farmers Market Association has been putting together a toolkit with each phase of the Restore Illinois plan. And so as we move into phase 4, we have some basic information and some changes or updates to that. Here is just a quick overview. And this, maybe the question would be, where does this guidance come from? Just to give you kind of a little bit of background on that. Restore Illinois, which comes out of the Illinois Department of Commerce, publishes guidelines for multiple types of businesses across the state, and those guidelines are specific. There is not specific farmers market guidelines at the state level. So that's where the Farmers Market Association has stepped in to take the state level guidance and then also what we are seeing across the country from other states that are managing COVID-19 similarly to Illinois, and what are they asking of their farmers market vendors and their farmers markets as they are moving forward or moving through some of these similar stages as the Restore Illinois plan. So for example, you would look at Michigan and New York, probably not looking at Texas, Florida, and Arizona right now, but we're looking at states that are having a similar decline or response to COVID and with a similar type of management as we move forward. So these are some basic requirements. Masks are required. All practices must support social distancing. And then communication is really, really key. You need to be communicating with your customer base on a regular basis inside the market, before the market, maybe after the market, about their expected behavior when they come to the market. I don't know, as I've kind of moved back into securing services, whether it's a hair salon or a dentist, I have gotten very detailed emails that tell me exactly what is expected, what type of behavior I must exhibit in order to receive service. And so it's a similar idea with farmers markets, maybe not to that degree, but letting our customer base know what it is that we expect of them in order for them to come to the market. And then, of course, enhance sanitation practices to make sure that we are keeping everyone safe. So these are the new guidelines. They are on the ILFMA website. It is www.ilfma.org. And there is on the home page, there is a link for the toolkit, and then there is also a link for a resource page. The resource page will have access to previous webinars that we've done or just some additional information. Everything is done sequentially on the resource page so that you know that what is first on the page is the most recent, whereas something way at the bottom may now be by now out of date. But the toolkit is found on the toolkit resource page, and these are some of we'll go through some of the highlights, some of the things. I think what you'll see this time with the toolkit is that we've just tried to simplify it a little bit. I think our understanding of how to manage farmers markets, how to manage the community has improved, and so I think this is just a little bit more simplistic than previous toolkits have been. So first of all, of course, don't enter if you're sick. That would apply, of course, to everyone, whether it's a vendor, whether it's a volunteer, or a shopper. And then again, this piece about communicate regularly with your customer base on how to shop the market. I really appreciate that most of the markets that I've been to since June 1st, I would say, all have some sort of information either at the booth level or at the entrance of the market that tells me how I am supposed to shop the market, the behaviors that are expected, and I think that that's very, very helpful. Social media is great for this as well because it allows your customer base even to interact, ask questions, and begin to understand what's expected of them before they get there. As we move into this next phase, I think we need to give everybody the freedom to experience this next phase as they feel comfortable. So as there are more freedoms, people that are at risk may feel more intimidated about being out because things are not as restricted as they once were. So again, going back to if at all possible, add a special shopping time for the elderly, the disabled, or your vulnerable populations to shop where there isn't maybe the density of people that you would experience at other times during the market. A lot of people have been successful with this. I've seen it done at the beginning or the end of the market, or even adding hybrids. We've seen a couple markets across the state that have a face-to-face market. You may shop, follow normal protocols for that market, but then at the same time, they're offering curbside pickup or pickup direct from a vendor so that there is minimal interaction or minimal opportunity for someone to even enter the market. So we've seen early, we've seen late, we've seen hybrids. But all of those systems in place to try and ensure that all of the guests that could potentially shop at the market have been accommodated and they feel comfortable coming to the market. This is the one, must wear, customers, volunteers, vendors, and staff must wear face coverings at all times over the nose and mouth as per state guidelines. At the end of each of these handouts, there are links to the state level guidance that would pertain, or the federal level guidance that would pertain to these recommendations. So if you want to be better versed in what it says about wearing masks at the market, masks in public, you can definitely follow the link and see what is there. Some markets, I will tell you honestly, have on public, in public spaces or having people telling them that they have a medical condition so they cannot wear a mask, have dealt with that by empowering and encouraging their vendors to choose or not to choose to service a customer that's not wearing a mask. Very often when someone is told they will not be served unless they have a mask on, masks appear. Or people will buy a mask at the front gate or receive a free mask at the front gate and want to enter the market. So working together to try and encourage mask use at the market in whatever way we can. And then of course, maintaining social distancing, really, really key part. This is the second page, but as I looked at it in the presentation, to me, it looked far too small. So this is the beginning of the second page of the document. Set up your market for social distancing. And this is really, really key because we do know that this is mandated. It's not just a nice recommendation, but it's a requirement. So how are you going to set up your market for social distancing? It may be by crowd control, having a specific entrance and exit, knowing how many people you expect to be in the market at any given time, and limiting the capacity to make sure that there is enough space for people to shop each vendor, stand in line as they wait to select their items and make their purchases, and then walk through the market. General rule of thumb, if you really, you can do it by square footage, but it's generally about 3 customers per vendor is the general rule of thumb for the square footage or the number of people in a market space at any given time. Monitoring attendance, just again, to make sure that social distancing is kept, setting up the booths with at least a minimum of 6 feet between them. And when setting up booths 6 feet apart, or whenever 6 feet apart is not possible by the physical space, using some sort of impermeable barrier like plexiglass, or we've also seen tents that are closer together, but that the canvas on the side of the tent is pooled and secured as a barrier between vendors that are closer than 6 feet together. So I've seen a lot of plexiglass at markets. I didn't expect that, but I have seen a lot of plexiglass, especially at the point of sale, because it is hard to conduct transactions while maintaining social distance. And so I have seen quite a bit of plexiglass being used at that point of sale to ensure that with a little bit shorter distance that both parties are protected. If your market is small, or if you just want to control the flow of traffic, setting up one-ways is good. We've learned from experience here, though, that setting up one-ways works. But when you set up one way, are you doing something to ensure that all the vendors get exposure, not just the ones at the beginning? And then are you doing something so potentially somebody can leave relatively easily and just go back into the queue to get back into the market because now they've walked by, seen something they wanted and wish they had bought it and want to go back. So setting up one way where possible or where recommended. And then within the booth space itself, making sure that there is social distancing as people wait in line to purchase their product. You need to, I think, as I've observed people at markets, I would say that people assume a safe distance from somebody is about 3 feet. I see lots of 3 feet, maybe 4 feet apart. But to get to 6 feet will often take cues from the ground or cues from how the physical environment is set up. Because I think we do stay apart, but we don't reach that 6 foot spacing that is desirable. So are there markers on the floor? That's where one way may help, or is somebody in the booth who's servicing customers reminding people of the spacing to ensure everybody's safety, not just the customer, but the vendor as well. And then enhanced sanitation. Still going to recommend that restricting the shopper's ability to handle products before purchasing and to ensure that all state and local food safety procedures are used for everything that is offered for sale. COVID recommendations don't supersede just general food safety and food laws, food handling laws that are out there. It is something that you need to do as well. All stands have to have either a hand washing station or sanitizer. Again, just making sure that everybody has an opportunity to wash their hands as much as possible. Still encouraging as much touchless transactions as possible, and then still kept the line that if cash is used, and that's fine, it's still up to the vendor as to whether they give change or whether they encourage somebody to spend up, or if they can't find a way to meet the exact amount of dollars that somebody has to spend. But that's up to the discretion of the vendor. Still recommending that product be set back. Again, it helps customers not touch things. Now, we all have certain behaviors that we've been used to for a long time, but allowing the vendors and the producers to select the product for us. Certainly, we can make our requests known as customers while we stand in line, but at the same time, that physical space in the front, I've seen used extremely well as the transaction point, giving a little more space, but that empty table also is a great place where I see customers then set down their product, bags from somewhere else, load their new stuff, and then that table can then be sanitized or disinfected on a regular basis. And that's a great way to manage just giving customers a little bit more space to purchase their products. It is still recommended, but not required, that you have 2 different people to handle payment, one for the product, one for the cash or credit or whatever tenure that you're taking. And then, of course, markets that do have link or link tokens or the WIC coupons or the senior farmers market coupons should come up with a protocol for how those reused items are processed. So how are they, where are they put, how are they sanitized between use, when are they counted, all of those kinds of things. Those kinds of procedures should be in place just to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with it. We have encouraged, and I know I love reusable bags at the market, but it is actually part of the commerce guidance that reusable bags are not allowed from the vendor. But if your customer brings them, just being sure that the vendors aren't touching the reusable bags, but using plastic instead, or some other type of container is required. This changed a little bit, just trying to just put on the booth or on the individual products for sale that wash before preparing and eating. It no longer says not ready for use. It just says wash it. Now, I think that that's a general recommendation that should predate COVID, but for many of our customers, they've never seen that before. And it's just a reminder to go ahead and do that to make sure that they are, in fact, doing it. Prepared food, we're seeing prepared food products come back, and those would be served as grab-and-go items. And samples can be offered in enclosed containers, the ones with a lid, and they should be distributed individually. So you wouldn't leave samples out on a tray for everybody to self-serve, but instead you would offer a sample from the vendor to the customer direct. So those are some of the changes to try and bring into the phase 4 guidelines. There are a couple things that aren't in here, and I'll just make a comment, is that they're not recommended not to happen. But with many of our markets, viability at stake, because they are an essential service and they are a food access point, writing into the guidelines things about entertainment and dining and seating and those kinds of things, we just left it out. And these are, in fact, guidelines. They come from best practices, as I said, from the Farmers Market Association and reflect similar practice across the country. But your local jurisdictions have the final say. So if you've gotten the green light to go ahead and provide seating and provide a place for your customers to eat while at the market, then that's something that you would probably have to work out with your local jurisdiction as to how they want you to manage it. We did think about adding some addendums that will be coming about booth setup, in particular for high volume sales at the market, and especially because we have this new system in place for buying food at the market, and then maybe also addressing some of those issues as an addendum if it applies to your markets, because it will not apply to all markets. And again, we hesitated putting that in there, assuming that we didn't want the assumption that this was back to a special event to be read into these guidelines, but instead that this is a food access point as its primary operation. And then as we come out of these phases and move into less restriction, other things can be added, but that would be at the community level. So, and then again, you'll see those footnotes that you may be of benefit for you as well. Customer guide is, again, just some of the high points, but as we said, communicating with your customer base before the market, during the market, after the market is really, really key. Trying to set the expectation of what you expect will make it so that the market runs a little bit easier, a little bit more smoothly, and hopefully you'll get good customer buy-in. If you have a customer that reads all this and says, well, that's not for me, maybe they'll stay home rather than come. And or if you have a customer that reads this all and says, well, yeah, I can do that for the safety of my community and the opportunity to buy this food, then I think that you would be in a better place for running the market. These are some of the signs that are available for download. This could be displayed on your booth. It could be displayed on individual products. And same for the customer guide. Now, one of the things that we're working on is a couple marketing campaigns, and I'll just show you a couple of things that haven't quite made it to social media yet, but they'll be here soon. And first is Your Farmer Knows Best, trying to encourage people to feel comfortable with letting their farmer choose their product. I don't know about you, but I truly trust my farmers to select my products for me. They know it best. They know, I make very specific requests and I get very specific things back. You know, I'll be like, well, I need tomatoes for today, or I need peaches for something for today, but I also need peaches to last the week. And I'll get 2 different boxes of peaches because they're at different places in the ripening cycle. Now, I can't see that by just looking at a box of peaches, but my producer, my farmer,
Jane, I think we lost you.
okay. Am I back?
There you go. You're back.
Okay. All right. Sorry. All right. And then this is to try and address the mask issue at markets. You know, love your farmer, love your market, wear a mask, and we're coming up with a few punny things to put out there. So hopefully it will catch on. Because again, trying to make our customer base feel safe at the market, keep our vendors safe at the market, those are really the goals. And so wearing a mask is a big part of trying to enhance that safety at the market. Many people, I've been on a variety of calls, again, all over the state, and I often hear the same thing, and that is that shopping at a farmer's market feels safer to me. I think there was a few people that mentioned that while they were enforcing the phase 1 guidelines, that some of their customers said they had never felt safer than that. That the grocery store doesn't run this way, but that the farmer's market, because it's designed for this, designed for social distancing, designed for safety, has felt much more comfortable, and that's where they like to shop. So we're trying to, of course, encourage customers to come, but also to feel safe and secure. We're also seeing across the state, we don't know exactly how it's going to fall out, but new customers coming to the market, people that haven't shopped farmers markets before. And so again, setting the platform that this is a safe place to be, great product, great reasons, please continue to come back. So we are looking at launching our mask campaign. It has been, as I've been on calls, probably one of the biggest issues that market managers have expressed concern with is the number of people that have not been interested in wearing masks. Right. So, Lori, do we have any questions that you can share with me, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, we do have some questions, and they've probably been answered throughout the presentation, but I wanted to ask them to make sure that they were answered appropriately or to their satisfaction. Sure. So the first one was, what about crafter vendors at the market? Are they allowed to come in?
Yes. Well, did we let that line come out? It basically said, maybe we need to go back and add that line. I'm not sure I saw that when I was reading, is that all vendors are welcome as long as there is space for appropriate social distancing.
Okay. And I believe you also talked about sampling of food, to-go samples, and I think you said it was right. A grab to go.
Grab to go, right.
Okay. All right.
And that, again, would require the vendor to have a current license with their local health department.
Okay. Choosing your own produce, I believe you said we still wanted our vendors to pick the produce for us, right?
Correct.
Okay. So crafters and artisans. Let me see what we got. So the discussion concerning face shields versus face masks. Some are being told that some markets are allowing a vendor to wear only a face shield. Is there a difference, or is it just face covering in general?
Whew. You know what, Lori, let's say we'll get back to that and answer it, because I'll just tell you from my medical background, I've never seen a health professional wear one or just a face shield, but I don't want to say that that's not appropriate. So let me look at that to give you a better answer. But I'll tell you, in a medical situation, you will always see a mask under a face shield. But I don't know about here. Let me check on that.
Because I believe it was in the Farmers Market Guidelines on the Farmers Market Guide Phase 4, where it says, do not enter if sick and communicate with customer.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it just said regular face coverings, but good.
Face coverings. Yeah, let me just check on that, because I don't know the answer.
Okay, great. Let's see, what else do we have? We have a market that has a representative, organizational representative who is soliciting customer contracts and brought bottled items to give out. The Illinois Department of Public Health told him he had to have a license, which cost anywhere from $100 to $200 to do that. They're asking if this is still true.
You know, the final say is with your local health department. The local health department can be more strict than the Illinois Department of Public Health. But if they had a ruling from Illinois Department of Public Health, I would say that is what should be enforced.
Okay.
But that can be confirmed as to whether that's current or was that last season.
Okay.
But yeah, if IDPH or your local health department has said this must happen, then
are you there?
Yeah.
Jane?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now you got it.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, you're kind of going in and out on that, so we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
So
no, just listen to IDPH or your local health department. They are the decision makers.
Okay. And so we had another follow-up question from an earlier one. So she said, so if I hear you right, you're saying that if it's okay locally, like their jurisdiction, to open up to non-essential agriculture booths, it's up to them, correct?
Correct.
Okay. There you go, Barbara.
Yes, our phase 3 guidelines actually opened up, state that all vendors were welcome. Phase 3 did. So phase 4 would build on that. Although I see it's not in this document, so we can go back and add it just to make sure that there's clarity on that.
Okay. And what about vendors that want to prepare the food on site? Would that be the same as the fast food grab and goes?
If the local health department has approved that that is an okay practice, the recommendation would still be that it would be served grab and go, so that it was not consumed on site or right as you hand it to someone, because to my knowledge, there's no way to eat without taking your mask off.
Okay. And the last question I have here is just, what about entertainment? What about live entertainments and things?
Yeah, that's what we said. We didn't call it out as no. If you remember in phase 1, anything except essential agricultural products was not permitted. That was our recommendation. But as we move forward, if your local jurisdiction is okay with that, then that is something you can pursue. As I said, the reason it's not called out as do it or don't do it is that for many communities, other special events are watching the farmers market. And if it becomes more special event-like than food access-like, the local leaders are getting pushback.
Right.
So just you have to navigate that carefully within your own community.
Right. It is a farmer's market for farmers. Okay.
You don't want to lose the privilege of having the farmer's market, because now the community decision makers are uncomfortable with special events. And that's what we've been working against the whole time. Let's make a farmer's market stand out as a food access opportunity rather than a special event.
Okay. I don't see any other questions in the box. I don't see anybody asking anything. But what I'd like to do is we have a few more minutes. For saving time, it says, I'd like to thank Jane for her time and her busy schedule to talk with us today. And as the market season progresses, should you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact the Illinois Farmers Market Association, Jane Maxwell, or myself. And I'd also like to thank everyone for joining us today for this webinar. I hope that some of the information that you received will give you the confidence to move forward, keeping customer and food safety in mind. But if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like to see presented, please let us know. And thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you.